Everyone believed mammoths vanished forever, but one hidden herd refused extinction. Long after mainland giants disappeared, these survivors still wandered an isolated Arctic island. How could forgotten mammoths outlive their own extinction by thousands of astonishing years? The answer begins with a world transforming after Earth's last great ice age. Melting glaciers quietly reshaped continents, coastlines, oceans, and countless ancient animal habitats. Most species adapted, migrated, or vanished as familiar landscapes disappeared beneath rising seas. Mammoths faced enormous pressure across continents, once dominated by endless frozen grasslands. How could any mammoth survive while everything around them kept disappearing? Across Eurasia, mammoth populations gradually collapsed until silence replaced their thunderous migrations. Everything suggested the species had finally reached its inevitable and permanent end. Yet one extraordinary detail completely changed that familiar story of extinction. Far beyond Siberia's northern coast, one isolated island escaped history's expected ending. Today we know it as the remote Arctic island called Wrangel. Reaching it became nearly impossible after rising seas severed every remaining land connection. Had nature unknowingly created the perfect refuge for the last mammoths? A small mammoth population suddenly became separated from every mainland relative forever. Instead of disappearing, these isolated giants continued living while the world kept changing. For thousands of years, extinction somehow stopped at Wrangel Island's lonely shores. But surviving wasn't the greatest mystery. Why did only Wrangel succeed? What made this frozen island succeed where an entire continent had already failed? The answer wasn't simple luck, nor a miracle hidden beneath Arctic snow. Wrangel offered rare conditions unlike almost anywhere else remaining on Earth. If Wrangel protected them, what finally doomed the last mammoths? Isolation protected them, but isolation would eventually become their greatest weakness. Every year, the island offered safety unavailable across the vanished mainland. Predators remained limited, and familiar Arctic grasslands still supported grazing mammoths. For generations, life continued with remarkable stability despite worldwide environmental transformation. It almost seemed the island had escaped the fate reshaping everywhere else. But survival depended on something far more fragile than anyone first realized. Could a population remain healthy after centuries separated from every other mammoth? Unlike mainland herds, no newcomers ever arrived carrying fresh genetic diversity. Each new generation inherited a smaller pool of possible genetic combinations. At first, those hidden changes produced almost no visible warning signs. Life appeared normal, allowing the population to keep growing and reproducing. Yet invisible biological limits were quietly becoming impossible to escape forever. Scientists would only recognize those silent changes thousands of years later. Ancient DNA revealed an unexpected story preserved inside the last mammoths themselves. Their genes recorded struggles no fossil alone could ever completely reveal. What secrets had remained hidden inside those frozen remains for millennia? The evidence suggested isolation carried consequences reaching far beyond simple geography. Their shrinking population slowly reduced nature's ability to correct harmful mutations. Every generation inherited slightly greater biological risks than the previous one. Still, these remarkable survivors refused disappearing despite mounting invisible disadvantages. Their survival still couldn't explain why extinction waited thousands more years. But could even extraordinary resilience overcome every challenge awaiting the last mammoths? The answer emerged from evidence hidden inside bones, tusks, and ancient frozen DNA. Scientists uncovered just how dangerously small the surviving herd had become. A tiny community survived where vast herds had once dominated frozen landscapes. Could such a small population remain resilient across thousands of isolated years? Small populations face dangers invisible long before obvious decline begins. Chance alone can gradually erase valuable genetic diversity from isolated groups. Each loss quietly reduced the population's ability to adapt to future changes. Ironically, surviving longer slowly made extinction increasingly difficult to avoid. Even successful years couldn't completely reverse those accumulating biological pressures. But genetics alone still couldn't fully explain their remarkable final chapter. What other forces continued shaping life across their isolated Arctic refuge? Wrangel remained cold, but its environment never stopped gradually changing. Seasonal weather shifted, vegetation evolved, and available resources slowly fluctuated. Every environmental change demanded new adjustments from an increasingly fragile population. Unlike mainland herds, these survivors had nowhere else to migrate. Their entire future depended upon one isolated island's changing ecosystem. Could one unexpected environmental crisis threaten everything they had preserved? Researchers found evidence suggesting fresh water occasionally became far less reliable. Extreme weather may have disrupted lakes supporting both drinking and vegetation. A single difficult season meant far more on isolated Wrangel than elsewhere. Several small hardships may have gradually combined instead of acting alone. The mystery no longer pointed toward one simple cause of extinction. But one final question still remained before their story could truly end. What finally ended the world's last mammoths after thousands of impossible surviving years? Scientists searched for one final disaster, but the evidence refused that explanation. No massive flood, volcanic eruption, or sudden catastrophe matched the surviving evidence. Instead, every discovery pointed toward a far more unexpected answer. The same isolation that once protected them slowly transformed into a permanent trap. No new mammoths arrived to strengthen their shrinking population through countless generations. Changing seasons quietly placed growing pressure upon an increasingly fragile ecosystem. Genetic weaknesses gradually reduced their ability to recover from ordinary environmental hardships. None of these challenges guaranteed extinction by themselves. Together, they created a future the last mammoths could never completely escape. Their greatest refuge had quietly become their greatest limitation. The island never suddenly failed them. It slowly stopped saving them. But that still wasn't the greatest discovery. The real mystery was why they survived so astonishingly long. Wrangel delayed extinction long after the rest of their world had vanished. Their isolation became both the reason they lived and the reason they died. The greatest paradox had finally revealed itself. Extinction arrived one generation at a time. Each generation survived, yet became more vulnerable. Their greatest victory became their greatest weakness. They outlived extinction because it had already begun. But even thousands of years couldn't stop its inevitable end. If you're looking to grow or live better, explore our curated collection of trusted recommendations. You'll find the link in the description and the pinned comment.